in honor of Halloween, okay, you know, we're going to get into some freaky, scary stuff, okay? We're talking about a real live vampire. Just kidding. He wasn't a real vampire, but he did things that were vampire-like, okay? He is known as the Vampire of Hanover, Germany, or the Butcher of Hanover, Germany, or the Wolfman.
Okay.
Like, he has multiple names, but his real name is Fritz Harman.
Okay.
Fritz Harman was born October 25th in 1879. He was the youngest of 6 children and his mother's favorite child, okay? His father was a drunk.
Sounds like trouble.
His father was a drunk and had a very short temper. I believe he cheated on his mother, Fritz's mother, and he actually got syphilis. And that made his anger and, you know, just distaste for his own children and family, it seems like, much worse. So, favored by the mom, dad was, you know, not great. He was very angry and drunk. So, Fritz was an introvert. He had low academic performance in school. His teachers complained that he would just daydream. He wasn't very interested in school. He wasn't interested in making friends. He actually played with dolls and liked to dress up in his sister's dresses as a child, and wanted to learn to sew. Like, at home, he was, like, just very interested in learning to sew and, you know, doing things that were deemed, like, feminine, and his father really did not like that, but his mother almost, like, encouraged it. So, at 8 years old, he is molested by a teacher at the school. And, you know, before this, Fritz was a very gentle little boy, much more gentle than his brothers, much more timid and shy. And then his whole personality changed after this. He almost reinvented himself, started slicking his hair back, and really concerned with his image overall. So then, at 15, I saw contradicting information on this. He either got sent to military school or chose to go to military school. And he didn't have much interest in school from the beginning. But he thought he could have a career in the military. I heard that his father sent him to toughen him up and make him more of a man. But he actually enjoyed military school until he started basically just like blacking out. And having no memory of things, and it's really strange. He got diagnosed with anxiety neurosis, which is, I believe, now an outdated term, but it was a really strange situation. So they sent him back home. And he goes home, and he doesn't return to school. He starts working in his father's cigar factory. And at this time, he starts luring boys into, like, secluded areas and starts molesting them.
Okay.
So he eventually gets found out and gets arrested, and they do a psychiatric evaluation on him.
Kind of reminds me of Nathan Barjona.
The court orders a psychiatric evaluation, and the psychiatrist determines he was unfit to stand trial and certified him as incurably deranged, and said that he should be detained in a mental asylum indefinitely and never get out.
Oh my gosh.
So the court agrees, and they put him in a mental asylum. And then 7 months later, his mother helps him escape. And she sends him to live with some family in Switzerland. So he's there for a little while. I also heard contradicting information about this, that he met his lover in Switzerland, but I also heard that he came back home, you know, like a year or so later and met her then. But anyway, he meets this woman, Berna Lewert, and they have a romance, and it's all great and everything, and she gets pregnant, and then shortly after they get engaged. everything's going good. He's actually really happy and doing well in his life. But then he gets an order to fulfill compulsory military service. Like, he had to go do time in the military and fulfill that service to his country, which was Germany. So apparently, according to him, this was the happiest time in his life, the golden era of his life. He was a really good shot with a rifle, and that was, everybody looked up to him for that. Like, he did really well in the military. It was a really good time. And then his mental illness strikes again, and he starts having these times he can't remember, these passing out, these blackouts, and he's in the hospital for 4 months, and then he's honorably discharged.
Jeez.
And they diagnose him with dementia precox, which is now considered schizophrenia. Okay. That was the earlier term of it. So after he's honorably discharged, he goes back to Hanover, Germany, his hometown, and starts working in his father's cigar factory again. And when he gets back, he finds out that his lover got an abortion. And he hadn't heard from her in a while. And, this is a big deal. This is a problem. But then when he goes back and is working in the cigar factory, him and her get together, like, things are a little rocky. She gets pregnant again, and he wants to be with her. Like, this is a shot of having a family. So, but things don't really end out working out that well with his father. Their strained relationship gets much worse. I mean, I told you his father's a drunk, has syphilis, like, is a super mean man, thought he was too feminine in some ways, It was a hard father to have. So it goes down to, like, lawsuits. Apparently, Fritz threatens to kill his father. But his father sets him and Berna up with, like, a fish business.
Okay.
And hopes that they will go be successful on their own and they can just separate, not
From
working
him.
for him anymore. Yeah. So it's going really well for them. They're doing good until Fritz starts blaming Berna of cheating on him. And she's had enough of him. And so she cancels the engagement. The business was in her name. He let her put it in her name. And he gets kicked to the street. Like, he has nothing at this point. All he has is his military pension, which is barely anything. So he starts resorting to street crimes, embezzlement, scams, burglary. And so into World War I, his crimes began to escalate, and he begins luring little boys again. So September 1918, a 17-year-old boy disappears. He ran away from home. His father's looking for him, finds out that he was friends with Fritz, and get this, Fritz was a police informant. Because they caught on to him with his street crimes, he agrees to give them information, and they agree to look the other way. So when the father of this boy comes to the police, they're like hesitant to look into Fritz. They're like, we said we would look the other way, so we're not going to look into him,
Jeez.
Mistake. Horrible mistake. So, they eventually, after seeing the connections, do agree to, go by his apartment and just check things out. Well, when they go to his apartment, they catch him in bed with a 13-year-old boy.
Oh.
That probably saved that little boy's life. They probably saved him.
Yeah. Jeez.
So, at the time, the laws are not great. All they charge him with is indecency. Here, I have it here somewhere.
Something like lewd, whatever.
It's indecency with a minor. And they could have also charged him with a gay crime, I would assume, because it was illegal to be a homosexual in that time in Germany. This is, World War I times.
Yeah.
It was illegal. So the cops determine they charge him with that, but they're like, we think this 17-year-old kid, left of his own accord, so they don't look too much into it at that time anymore. Now, Fritz was a black market butcher. He was selling meat from, like, unknown sources at the time for super cheap, And the economy in Germany was not good at this time. You know, Weimar Republic, I think it was at this time, wasn't doing great. And there's also a ton of sex workers around town at this time because the economy's not doing well. Boys, girls, all kinds of people are turning to sex work to supplement income. And it was said by locals that young boys were hanging around a bar right by Fritz's apartment, that was like a typical hangout area. And that people also knew that he was taking young boys home with him, and some of those boys were never seen again.
Oh, no.
So then there was also rumors around town that he was using the young boys as meat because he was a black market butcher. And this is so much of a rumor, okay, that the children in that time period actually came up with a rhyme about him. A song.
Okay.
Wait, and it says, "Wait just a while, soon Hammerman or Harmon will come to you too. With the little cleaver, he'll make liver sausage out of you."
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, local rumor, guys.
So locals knew what was going on.
Kids are making songs about this. Like, what? So, February 1923, two local women walk into the cop station, and they're like, "We want to know, is this meat pork? Is the meat he's selling pork, or is it people?" So they suspected that he was selling young boys, and they saw this boy near his apartment, okay, and they thought he killed him and dismembered him. So they snuck into his apartment and found a bloody apron and a pot of like soup or something full of little pieces of meat. They stole 2 pieces of the meat, brought it to the police, and were like, "Tell us, is this human meat or is this pork?"
Oh, my gosh.
So the police are super hesitant. They're like, "This is insane. Like, no way. This is insane." And they don't take it too serious, but they take it to a doctor, and they're like, can you inspect this and tell us, is this human or is it pork?" And he said he had a cold and he couldn't smell well, but you can clearly see that it's pork rinds.
Okay.
Who knows? That doesn't sound super convincing to me.
No.
So the case is closed at the time on Fritz, and during this time he began dating a young man of the name of Hans. I think it was in like 1919 actually that they met each other at a train station where he used to procure boys. Hans was kind of aimless, didn't have a home, and went along with him, and let him lure him to his home with...
Sure.
Somewhere to stay and a free meal. And he stayed with him for a while, and it's thought that he helped him procure boys. He even apparently walked in on Fritz at one point with a body still on the bed and was like, "What time should I come back?" And because Fritz had never had somebody just accept him in his crimes and his evil ways, he did anything to keep him. Like, they were partners in crime at this point. But the police could never, like, officially connect him to any of the murders.
Jeez.
So,
Terrifying.
I know. So, summer 1924, on the banks of a nearby river, kids found a skull. Some kids found a skull and they allege it was a young man's head severed from his body with a knife. Then locals hear of this, and rumors are, going around town. And so the locals go down to the river and start searching the river. Tons of people flooded the river and were searching. They found over 500 remains believed to have belonged to 22 people. 30% of those remains they believed to have belonged to young men between the ages of 15 to 20, which fits his MO.
Yeah.
Fits his victimology. So, the cops can't ignore evidence anymore. They know this looks like his MO. There's tons of rumors around him. So, he gets investigated. Undercover police officers come from Berlin because he was an informant. He knew tons of the cops there, so they had people from the outside come in. Undercover cops come in and look into him. So they're near his apartment, and they see him outside arguing with a young boy. Fritz walks right on up to him and is like, hey, arrest him. He's traveling on forged documents. They do. He's 15 years old. So the police take him in, and the police Kirk is his name. He starts telling the police, I have been staying with him for several days, and he has assaulted me sexually several times at knife point. So they go search his apartment, and they find blood-stained walls. Like,
Oh my gosh.
just the walls are literally stained in blood. Like, people, or he claimed animals, Fritz claimed it was animals, had been butchered there over and over and over for like a long time. So he claims it's animals for his butchering business.
All over the walls?
Right.
Oh.
So the police find these personal items, and they decide to take them and display them at the police station and have locals come by and see if they recognize any of it. Several pieces get recognized by family members or friends of people who were missing, young boys that were missing.
Jeez.
I know. It's so sad, Like, the police honestly didn't have everything we have now to catch somebody like this.
Yeah.
Like, we are so lucky to have these things now.
We are. Because, there's tons of true crime stories of there being a serial ender who has hundreds, like dozens of victims because they didn't have what we have now.
I know. It's incredible, honestly, what we have now. And it can be used for good, but it can also be used for bad. And, even though there are holes in some of the forensic, technologies we have now, and sometimes they're not super reliable, they're still incredible and can be so... Oh my gosh, my tooth just fell out. God damn it. Even though there can be problems and holes in evidence...
Mm-hmm.
Even though there can be problems and holes in evidence, like we see in the Koberger case, and we have questions, they can still be super reliable in some cases. And they're super helpful. Like,
They are.
oh my gosh, this guy probably would have been caught if he existed now.
One piece of evidence doesn't close a case. It's
a
when someone's
combination.
guilty, you're gonna find more than one piece of evidence. There's no such thing as a perfect crime. There's no such thing as a perfect case.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And I think that they had to collect so much more, I think, in this case, like, over time. That's what was damning in the end, is like how many accounts of people seeing things, how many people were missing, the personal items, the bloodstained walls. It just became hard to ignore at that point. But anyway, so they arrest him, and police lock him up, and they used really, like, unethical ways of trying to get him to confess. And I have here a quote from NDR that says, 4 skulls are fastened to the corners of Harmon's cell. The eye sockets were covered with red paper, and there is a burning candle behind them. A sack of bones is also placed in a corner of the cell. Harmon is persuaded that the souls of the dead would take him. He was also beaten during his interrogation. So they're trying to, like, scare and, beat a confession out of him. So, he ends up confessing July 1924. He's 44 years old at this point, and he confesses to killing more than 20 men while intoxicated, like, with sex. Sexually intoxicated. He claimed he would lure them, to his home with, like, a free meal and a place to stay, have, sex with them, and that he didn't mean to kill them. He would just, have so much desire.
Oopsie.
Right. He would have so much desire that he would bite into their Adam's apple and through it
Oh my gosh.
Literally, like, in most cases, severing their trachea.
Oh.
That, he called it
Ugh.
his love bite.
He even had a name for it?
Yep. That's why he was deemed the vampire, the butcher,
Gosh.
the wolfman. That's why he has all these names, because he was a butcher, and they suspect he sold these young boys meat, their bodies as meat, and also he would bite their necks.
That's disgusting.
And if they weren't dead after him doing that, he would then strangle them.
Yeah, that's just disgusting. I can't even imagine somebody, no matter how drunk you are, no matter how loaded you are, no matter how amped up you are, it just doesn't make sense.
What is this fixation with the Adam's apple? That's so strange.
I have no clue. To me, I understand how sociopaths become serial enders and so on, but I don't ever understand why they fixate on these certain obsessions that they do, like their victim MO or something like that. Sometimes you can connect like past trauma to, oh, okay, that happened to them and they're replaying that. But like something random like that, where did that come from?
I know.
What?
I mean, he was molested as an 8-year-old by a teacher. I wonder if that teacher was male or female. Maybe male. He had a wife. Like, he wanted kids. His father was super mean to him. His mom encouraged his, like, more feminine, interests. I don't know what could make you fixate on an Adam's apple specifically, except for the fact that it's inherently a male trait.
Yeah.
And maybe it's something he just found attractive. I don't understand, but
it doesn't
it's
change
really strange.
the fact that, like,
and he was
biting?
schizophrenic. According to today's standards, it's very possible he was schizophrenic.
Biting through skin, like,
I know.
that makes my gag reflex start.
Trust me, though.
It's gnarly stuff.
Yeah, it's just horrific how these young boys died, and it makes me so incredibly sad for them. There were so many chances for him to be off the streets. Like, he literally got sentenced to a life in an asylum and is out on the streets doing this till he's 40-something. 44.
Fail.
I know.
Yeah.
Seriously. So, after he confesses, he tells the police that he has a teenager, young boy's head hid behind his stove, wrapped in paper. They go find it. There's literally pictures of them looking for it. And he said he didn't know exactly how many he killed. At one point he said it was 20. At one point he said it was more like 40 to 50. And then he later said it was like 70. So I think it is presumed that his numbers are in like this. It's around 70.
Gosh.
So his behavior in court was really strange. He showed no remorse. He would smoke cigars. He was like very disrespectful to the victims and their memories. He saw them nothing more as doll boys, which was a term back then for a prostitute, like a male prostitute, or young boys in this case.
Disconnection with.
He believed they deserved death almost. Like, I know.
Jeez, dude.
So, Hans, his lover, was sentenced to death by guillotine, and so was Fritz. But Hans later won his appeal and got life instead of execution. 4 months later, after the trial had ended, April 15th, 1925, is the day of his execution. And this was by guillotine. So he made this statement before his execution. Often after I had killed, I pleaded to be put away in a military asylum, but not a madhouse. If Granz had really loved me, which I'm assuming, is that Hans? What's Granz mean? I'm not sure. He would have been able to save me. Believe me, I'm not ill. It's only that I occasionally have funny turns. I want to be beheaded. It'll only take a moment, then I'll be at peace.
Weird.
Super weird.
So almost like he was battling his own.
I don't know if Granz meant his lover Hans. Like,
I don't know.
Maybe that's the way it's spelled in German or something.
Maybe.
I don't know.
That's strange, though.
I know. It is weird. So that day he was beheaded by guillotine, and then his brain was sent off to a research center, and it was kept for a really long time. But they discovered he had meningitis, which they think could have caused swelling that like led to behavioral problems.
Wild.
Yeah, but his head was kept for like a long time.
Well.
And then it was cremated finally. I don't remember the year it was cremated, but this case is really interesting. It makes me wonder. I want to know more about his childhood.
Yeah.
Like, what led him to have this fixation. It's also interesting because it takes place like back in the Weimar Republic when, you know, being gay and trans was still legal, but they had like the first trans and gay research institute and clinic. You know, there was a lot going on politically back then. And he did have a charge actually at one point that was, I forget the name of it, but it's like, you know, being charged with being gay or something. He was caught in some situation.
It was probably left up to cops' discretion.
It was. It definitely was.
Yeah.
But it also makes me wonder about his mental diagnoses, like, because they didn't have the terms back then that we have now. They didn't have the understanding, the knowledge. Meningitis. That was like a strange thing for me.
Yeah, to research.
Yeah. Like I didn't meningitis, I guess, back then wouldn't be as easily curable because they didn't have antibiotics.
No, yeah. Yes, correct.
But I didn't think meningitis was something you could just have for years. I thought it was something like if you don't get treatment pretty quickly, you die. So I'm like thinking
like maybe it came at the very end.
Right,
then?
like while he was already in prison or something, because it just doesn't really make sense to me.
Yeah,
I didn't think it was
maybe.
something you could just have for a long extended period of time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I
It's
don't know
super
enough.
deadly,
I don't know
untreated.
enough of meningitis to know if it's something that can last for a long time. So 1 in 5 people surviving an episode of bacterial meningitis may have long-lasting after effects.
There's also viral meningitis. I know that. Strange, though. It's a really strange case. Just demented. And
It's super demented.
super, super demented. I just honestly, I don't even know what to think. Like, I'm so curious about how this happened. Why the police would keep turning their backs on it. I don't care if he's an informant. Like, little boys are going missing.
Yeah, I
Like,
mean,
you have direct evidence that he could be involved.
doubt is a pretty powerful thing. And if he is in close contact with them, which is like serial killer MO, serial killer 101, where killers insert themselves into cases, into investigations, into searches and things like that, he could have been manipulating him. Maybe he was a very manipulative person in a successful
Cunning.
way. Yeah,
Charismatic.
that was able to keep the cops off him. You know, joke about
Can you
it.
have
haha.
schizophrenia and be, like, cunning and charismatic, though?
Who knows? I think that each person
Without medication?
I think that each person is such a unique and separate person that anybody could be any mix of things. I don't know.
I think serial killers are also, like, a very new thing. Like, a lot of people think of it as, like, you know, from the 60s to, like, the 90s, we had a ton. And it
Yeah.
kind of became a new thing to worry about. But it also makes me curious how many serial killers have existed over time. Like, major ones. Like, Jack the Ripper's the first one we know of, I think. How common was it where they didn't know? Because you also have people like parents, grandparents saying, the world was so safe when we were kids. But
Yeah.
was it? Or did you just not know about it?
Yeah, because No phones.
Exactly.
Yep.
But I want to know what you guys think about this case. Super creepy.
It is creepy. Let us know.
Yeah, that was the vampire or butcher of Hanover.
Yeah. All right, here. So,